Hello Disney Infiniteers! Today I'll show you how to build a fun little side quest in my Disney Castle toy box. But before I do, I want to let you know that there will not be an episode this Friday because I need to finish up my Halloween video. In fact, I'm actually going to take a short break from my Kingdom Hearts series because on Monday we'll be returning to my Disneyland series and taking a tour of the Haunted Mansion. And because the Haunted Mansion is such a quick and easy toy box to build, I'm going to spend the next week doing the build videos for it. I think I can knock it out in just 2 episodes. So no video this Friday, and next week we'll go back to my Disneyland series to do the Haunted Mansion, and then the following week we'll return to Kingdom Hearts. So that's the schedule for the next couple of weeks. But for today, let's create a little side quest for Disney Castle. We have this wonderful castle that we've built that players can climb all over and is filled with interesting rooms and spaces. So let's give them a reason to explore it. And it'll also give players something else to do in this toy box. So for this side quest, the Grand Duke has lost a bunch of scrolls and he needs your help to find them. It's a very simple collection quest, but what makes it fun is the search, because there's a lot of levels in this castle. And even though the player can see the collectibles on the radar, they have to figure out which level they're on. So that means they're going to have to explore the castle and look around. And that's good. So let me show you the toys that we're going to need for today's episode. So I've placed a locator here on this part of the castle. It's nice we can let the Grand Duke wander around, but he's not going to wander out of this area. So that's really good. Keeps him confined but not stationary, and makes it a little bit more realistic. So for this quest we're going to need a friendly wave generator, 2 dynamic triggers, and a radar marker. We're going to need a collectible tracker, an action enforcer, and a sound effects generator. These 2 are for the end of the mission, the end of the side quest. And then for the collectibles, I'm actually going to set up a series of possibilities. So we have a randomizer. I've got 3 replayers and 3 logic gates, and also a time delayer. And if we wanted to just have 1 set of collectibles, all we would need is the time delayer and the replayer. But since I want to show you how to set this up where you can have multiple possibilities and have it not be so predictable, that's why we need these additional toys. And before we start hooking things up, I'm going to come over here to the farm because we had a replayer that we used to put down those clouds. And so we don't need this anymore. I'm going to delete it. That'll leave the clouds up there, as you can see. But there's only so much space in memory for replayers to put things down, so we want to keep this replayer memory as empty as possible. Right now we have the collectible over here for the mushroom, and we've got a replayer over there for the beanstalk, and that's 5 objects in total that it's putting down. So if we limit our replayers here to 5 objects each, that's 15 that these would be putting down. So that's 20 in total. That should be fine. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need is our mission giver. So let's set him up. So on our friendly wave generator, I've already configured the wave to save a little bit of time. I'm going to use the Grand Duke costume, and you actually don't have to scroll too far down in this list to find him. And while we're right here, let's set the properties. Everything in here is fine. I'm going to take the generation delay to 0. And you don't have to do this next part, but under the generated friend options, I kind of like to explicitly set the behavior to wander. He's going to do that by default anyway, but I just kind of like to make it explicit. Alright, and then we'll connect this up to our locator, which is right up here. So that's where the Grand Duke will be. And I want him in the toy box by default when we start. So on our level starter up here, we'll do a new logic connection on Catalyze. And we'll come over to the friendly wave generator and generate the wave. So when we load up the toy box next time, that will put the Grand Duke in here for us. Alright, so to set him up as a mission giver, we're going to connect this dynamic trigger with a new actor connection to our friendly wave generator. And on the properties for this, target will be the connected actor. And the trigger distance I'm going to set to be 6. We'll also connect up our radar marker to that friendly wave generator as our actor. And on the properties for that, we'll leave the beacon type set to a blue exclamation point. Beacon location needs to be the connected actor. We're going to make this active by default when the player loads the toy box. Okay. And then we have a second dynamic trigger over here, and this is for taking the mission giver out of the toy box once he's given us the mission. This is to save memory. And so we're going to connect this up with a new actor connection as well. And on the properties for this, the target will be the connected actor. And the trigger distance on this one, I'm going to set this to be 40. So I'll have to wander away from him a little bit. And I don't want this active until the player actually speaks to the mission giver, because they could wander into that 40 area radius without actually approaching the mission giver. And when they wander away, I don't want to take him out. And so we're going to come up to our level starter. New logic connection on Catalyze, and I want to turn that larger radius dynamic trigger off by default until we're ready for it. Alright. So then for the mission giver, this dynamic trigger here will kick that off. So when the player approaches the 6-unit radius around our mission giver, this is going to go off. So we're going to do a new logic connection when entered by player any. First thing we'll do is turn off our radar marker. And on the radar marker, since we only want to do this once, when that's deactivated, we'll turn off this dynamic trigger. On this dynamic trigger, new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll reuse the text displayer that we had put down last time. That's over here. And under the missions category, all the way at the bottom, the Grand Duke is going to say, "Will you help me?" Alright, on our dynamic trigger for the mission giver, we'll do a new logic connection when entered by player any. We want to turn on this dynamic trigger here. And on this dynamic trigger, new logic connection when exited by player any. And again, that's this one. We'll come over to our friendly wave generator and defeat the wave. So once the player has talked to the mission giver, then we turn this on, and when the player wanders far enough away, we take the mission giver out. Alright, so that's the mission giver, and all of that is pretty straightforward. Now the other thing we want to do is put the collectibles out there for the player to collect. And so on this dynamic trigger for the mission giver, new logic connection when entered by player any, and again note which one I'm on. It's this one. We're going to come to our randomizer and do an action. And this will pick one of 3 possible sets of collectibles for us to go, which I haven't set up yet. Alright. So that's everything the mission giver has to do. Now on our replayers, we're going to come into the properties and take the playback interval to 0 on each one, because we want the collectibles to show up right away. And so now we're going to place the collectibles. So I'm going to come out of the editor. I'm going to step on my first replayer. I'm going to start recording, which on my Wii U is B, looking at the menu in the lower right. I have to step off the replayer to get back into the editor. And for the collectible, I'm going to use the parchment scroll collectible, and I'm going to place 5 of them around the castle. So we might, for example, place one up here inside this little room. We could place one up on top of the tower up here. We could place one in the throne room. This would be our third collectible. For number 4, we'll put one in the courtyard. We'll hide it behind the castle here. And for number 5, let's put this one. Let's put this one right out here. And then I'll exit out of the editor. We'll step on the replayer. To get the menu in the lower right, I stop recording and press A to clear. And then we'll step on our second replayer and start recording. And we're going to place 5 collectibles, but we're going to put them in different locations. So for this one, for example, maybe we want to put this one up here, behind where the player is talking to our Grand Duke. And maybe we want to put the next one over here inside this little tunnel. And it's nice to climb this tower, but instead of placing one up here again, maybe what we should do is place one down below someplace where they would have to jump to get to it. Well, actually, let's put it out over here. I think I'm actually going to put something there, though, next time. So maybe we'll put it out here this time. So what? That's is that that's number 3. So we got 2 more we got to put into the toy box. Let's put one down in the stables, because why not? Put it here in the corner. And for number 5, let's see. What level haven't we placed one on yet? Maybe we can tuck one up in the corner over here. So just pick places. Try to scatter them around. You don't want to put them in the same places. Alright, so I've stepped on my replayer. I'm going to press B to stop recording, A to clear. We'll come over to our third one. Press B to start recording on that one. And now we'll pick 5 different places. So you don't want this to be predictable. So you want to put these in a different place every time, so it's not obvious to the player. They don't go looking in the same places every time they do this. So we'll put one over here, yeah, in this corner this time. So that's 2. We'll put one on the other side of the throne room. That's 3. Maybe this time we'll put one up on the front of the tower. So they have to come around the front of the tower to get to that. That's 4. And then for number 5, let's see. Where haven't we put one yet? Oh. Let's, can we drop one in here? Yeah, we can do that. Drop one right in there. Alright, then we'll step on that third replayer. Stop recording, A to clear. So you have to remember which replayer you're working with. Alright, so we have 3 different sets of collectibles. So on our randomizer, we're going to do a new logic connection on random trigger 1. We'll do a playback on this one. On a new logic connection on random trigger 2, we'll do a playback on this one. And on random trigger 3, playback on that one. So the mission giver, when we approach and talk to them, is going to invoke the randomizer, and the randomizer is going to broadcast one of those 3 trigger signals that we've hooked up. And it's going to select one of these in order to do a playback. So we're only going to get one set of collectibles. Alright. On our collectible tracker, this is going to keep track of when the player picks all of those up. So under the collectible type, we want to use the parchment scroll. And did I pass it? There it is, parchment scroll. And we'll go ahead and show them on the radar because that will help the player at least to know if they're in the ballpark vicinity. So this will keep track when the player finds the collectibles and collects them. And then when all of the collectibles are collected, this will kick off the end of the mission. So we'll do the basics here first. So on a new logic connection on the collectible tracker, when the final collectible is collected, we'll come over to our action enforcer and have all the players celebrate. On the collectible tracker, new logic connection, when the final collectible is collected, we'll come to our sound generator, and under the musical category, we'll have it do the musical fanfare. By the way, this is the one toy that's not in the Creativa Toys drawer. It's in Gameplay Toys. And we need to set the properties on this to turn off the 3D sound at speaker or locator so the player can hear that without having to stand right next to this thing. And then the other thing we want to do is take the collectibles back out to save memory, because even though the player will have collected them, they're actually still there in the toy box. They're just invisible. And there's a couple of things we need to keep track of with this. We can't just immediately clear the collectible that they just picked up, because that can cause issues. So that's why we have a time delayer in here. And the default 1 second property there is fine. So on the collectible tracker, we're going to do a new logic connection. When the final collectible is collected, we'll invoke the time delayer to start the delay. 1 second later, this will go off, and then it's safe to remove the collectibles. Now, we put those down with the replayer, and if you try to clear a replayer that has not been played back, you can actually corrupt it. And so we need to prevent that from happening, and that's why I have a logic gate in here. I've got one for each of the replayers. So what's going to happen is when we get to this point, we're not going to know which replayer the randomizer picked. And so this is going to have to do a clear on all of them because it doesn't know which one. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use the logic gate, and we're going to close all of these gates by default. And when the randomizer picks a replayer, we'll open its corresponding logic gate. And then this will try to close all of those by inputting into all of those gates. Only one of them will be open. And so the signal will only get through the one logic gate that's open, and will only clear the one replayer that's been played back. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So the first thing we need to do is come up to our level starter and close all of those logic gates. So new logic connection on Catalyze. We're going to come down and close each of these logic gates. So when the toy box loads, all of these will be closed. And no signal will be able to get through any of them. So on catalyze, close the second gate. And hopefully, if that didn't quite make sense what I went through, it'll start to as you see me hook this up. And then on this one, we'll close that third gate. Okay. And I've put one next to each of the replayers to kind of help you know which one goes with which. So on this one, random trigger signal 1 did a playback on that. So on the randomizer, new logic connection random trigger 1 needs to open the corresponding gate. Random trigger signal 2 went to this one. So on the randomizer, new logic connection random trigger 2, that will open up this gate. And same thing with random trigger signal 3. That will open up the gate that goes with the last replayer. And so when we pick the replayer to play back, we're also going to open the logic gate that goes with it. The other two remain closed. Okay? And so when we're ready at the end of the mission to remove those collectibles, our time delayer here, new logic connection, when the delay is completed, it's going to attempt to input into each of these gates. But again, only one of them will be open. And then each of these gates, new logic connection on output, it will clear its corresponding replayer. So again, only one of these gates will actually allow the signal to go through, because only one of them will be open. And it's the one for the replayer that was played back. So this will try to input into all of them, but only the one that's actually open will clear its corresponding replayer. So that prevents us from doing a clear on the other two and corrupting the replayers. And so that's the purpose of that. All right, so we can kind of test this out. Since you didn't see me actually play this mission in the playthrough video, let's go ahead and do that now. So under the Creativitoys, I'm going to drop a button out here temporarily. And by the way, note my memory meter on the right. As we've been adding Creativitoys here, we've been starting to fill that up. So that's why it's important to leave room in the toy box for the logic. I typically try to only use enough memory during the build to use up about 2/3 of the memory. I try not to exceed that because I know I'm going to need 1/3 of the memory for the logic, for the enemies and all that stuff. So on our button here, we'll do a new logic connection when pressed, and we'll do a start on our level starter. This is just so we don't have to save the toy box, exit, and reload. Alright, so doing this, that will put our mission giver out there, and you can see the little radar markers out there now. That also closed all the logic gates and turned off this dynamic trigger. So now there's the Grand Duke, and he's wandering around, waiting for somebody to come and offer to help. Alright, so before I test this, I think I want to go ahead and save my toy box just in case there's a problem. And actually, before I do even that, let's take that button out, because we don't need this now. We've already pressed it, which kicked off the level starter for us. And I like to come out to the start pad here. This is where I like to do my saves for my toy box. And there's really not much reason for that, except it does get us away from any trigger areas or dynamic triggers. Let's see, we're going to save this one this time. That's the one I saved right at the start of the video today. We'll just let this finish. I won't fast forward because this should only take a moment. But putting the character on the start pad and doing the save also sets the thumbnail for the save file. So I kind of like that to be right where the player is going to be starting. Alright, so toy box is saved in case there's a problem. Let's put Donald over here on top of the castle wall. And now we will go find the Grand Duke. And he says, "Will you help me?" Like I have a choice. And now we've got 5 dots on the radar in addition to the radar marker for the main quest. And you'll notice now we've wandered far enough away that he's gone. And you can also see it's picked the second replayer. So the one with the scrolls on top of the castle wall here. So we'll go ahead and pick that up. And I can't even remember everywhere I put the scrolls, so we have to look around. Alright, there's one. Ooh. Didn't put one in the castle courtyard this time, but I think there's one in the stables. I think it was in the front stable where we put it. On the one hand, it's good that I can't remember because now I have to play my own game. Actually look for these things. But on the other hand, since I just want to show that the mission works and test it out, it means I can't go right to where they are. But this way we get to explore the castle a little bit. And one of you viewers wanted to know if I could do a walkthrough on the castle. So here you go. Kind of wandering through the castle while we're looking for this thing. And let's go ahead and climb our ladder. Whoops. And I think the other one is up top there somewhere. So we'll have to climb up. Whoops. Come over here. But as you can see, this gives you a reason to get up here and run around a little bit. There's one. We got one more left. Let's see, the one out in front of us there is for the mission, the main mission start. The other one is out over this way. Oh yeah, that's right, I dropped it down here. Here we go. So this should finish the mission. This is our 5th one.
What an accomplishment!
So there we go. We had our end of mission sound. Donald celebrated, and now if we go into the toy box, you'll see the little dotted line that would normally be around the collectible after I picked it up is gone. So that replayer has in fact been cleared. And that's it for the side quest. When we return to this series in 2 weeks, I'll show you how to create a little flying challenge that will give the player something else to do in this toy box. Thank you for watching. Before you go, let me remind you that I've got logic diagrams on my blog to help you connect the Creativitoys that I used today. The link is in the video description. You can also subscribe to my channel by clicking my photo in the lower right corner of this video, if you haven't done that already. Have a great week, and I'll see you on Monday.